Somewhere out there is a couple who just brought a newborn home and somehow did not fall into the decline everyone warns new parents about. They are not luckier than you. Their baby is not easier than yours, does not sleep through the night any sooner, does not cry any less at 3 in the morning. They are simply doing a small handful of things differently. Things so subtle most people miss them entirely while they are happening. And the research behind what those things actually are is far more specific than anyone tells you going in. None of it requires more time, more money, or more sleep than you currently have. It requires almost nothing extra at all, which is exactly why it gets overlooked by people searching for a bigger, more dramatic fix. Level 1. The notice. Researchers studying thriving couples found something deceptively simple sitting underneath nearly everything else. Noticing. Throughout an ordinary day, partners are constantly making small bids for connection. A comment about being tired, a sigh, a look at this, a hand reaching out for no obvious reason, that quietly ask, "Are you paying attention to me?" Couples who weather parenthood well do not get fewer of these moments thrown at them in the chaos of a newborn. If anything, exhaustion creates more of them, not fewer. They simply catch more of the ones that come their way, even mid-diaper change, even half asleep on the couch at midnight. Level 2. The turn. Catching a bid is only half of it, and it is the easier half. In one of the most cited findings in relationship research, a team that followed newlyweds for 6 years found that couples who stayed together had turned toward their partner's bids 86% of the time, while couples who eventually divorced had done so only 33% of the time. After a baby arrives, when both of you are running on fumes and bids get smaller and quieter, easier to miss in the static of a crying infant and a sink full of bottles, this gap is exactly where most couples actually drift apart. Not in the big blowout arguments, in 1,000 tiny moments of being too exhausted to turn around, too deep in your own phone, too focused on the next task on the list to register that your partner just reached for you in some small, forgettable way. Level 3. The repair. The couples who hold together still lose their patience plenty, snap over a tone of voice, sigh too loud, say something they regret the second it leaves their mouth. Researchers who study how couples recover from conflict found that repairs offered within roughly 3 hours of an argument tend to rebuild trust, while the same unresolved fight left to sit overnight, marinating in silence while you both lie in bed staring at the ceiling, tends to do real, lasting damage. Composure is not the skill being measured here. Coming back is. A simple, "Can we try that again?" within the same evening does more for a relationship than weeks of carefully avoiding the subject entirely, hoping it quietly resolves itself. Level 4. The ratio. Even the strongest couples argue, often more in the newborn months than at any other point in their relationship before or since. What separates them is not how often they fight, it is what surrounds the fighting. Long-running research on stable marriages found that during conflict, happy couples maintain roughly 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction. A glance, a touch, a moment of humor, balanced against the criticism or the eye roll, while couples heading toward real trouble sit much closer to even, with negative interactions nearly matching the positive ones until the relationship feels like a ledger instead of a partnership. Outside of conflict, on an ordinary, unremarkable day, the ratio for thriving couples climbs even higher, closer to 20 positive interactions for every single negative one. Level 5. The map. The version of your partner from before the baby is gone, replaced by someone exhausted, anxious, occasionally unrecognizable, and at times a stranger even to themselves in the mirror. Gottman calls the ongoing project of understanding a partner's inner world a love map, and couples who keep updating that map, asking what is actually going on for you right now instead of relying on what used to be true a year ago, before any of this started, adjust to the after-baby version of each other instead of quietly grieving the person their partner used to be. The questions stay simple. What's been the hardest part of your day? What are you actually worried about right now, underneath the logistics? Who are you becoming in all of this, now that the version of you from a year ago barely recognizes the inside of your own head some days? Level 6. The fairness. Noticing each other only carries a relationship so far if one partner is still quietly tracking nearly every detail of a newborn's life alone, while the other genuinely believes things are being shared fairly. Couples who hold up well tend to make the invisible workload an open, ongoing conversation, rather than a private grievance that festers in silence. Naming out loud who actually remembers the pediatrician appointments, the diaper sizes, the nap windows, the school forms years down the line, instead of quietly assuming it will eventually balance itself out. It rarely does on its own, and pretending otherwise, hoping your partner will simply notice without being told, is exactly how resentment compounds into something neither of you can name until it has already done damage. Level 7. The thanks. One of the simplest findings in this research is also one of the easiest to skip entirely when you are exhausted and running on 3 hours of broken sleep. Studies on long-term couples found that when one partner expressed genuine gratitude, even for something small like making coffee or handling a midnight feeding without being asked, both partners reported feeling more connected the very next day. Researchers describe this as a find, remind, and bind effect. Gratitude does not only make the person receiving it feel good, it quietly reminds the person giving it why they chose this particular partner in the first place. On the exact days that reason is hardest to remember, somewhere around hour 4 of a screaming baby and a sink full of dishes. Level 8. The twist. Here is what almost nobody tells couples who are doing everything right. None of this makes the hard months disappear. The couples who come out the other side intact still have nights where they snap at each other over nothing, a tone, a dish left in the sink, still grieve who they used to be before any of this started, still wonder some weeks if they are the same two people who once had so much energy for each other, who used to stay up talking instead of falling asleep mid-sentence by 9. What's different is not the absence of struggle, it is what they do in the few minutes right after it, every single time, for years on end, until it stops feeling like a deliberate skill they are practicing and starts feeling like simply who they are to each other. If you watched the last video and felt the weight of that 67% figure sitting somewhere in your chest, this is the other side of it. None of these couples got an easier baby than you did. None of them got more sleep, more help, or more money. They simply kept turning around when it actually mattered, kept circling back after the bad nights instead of letting them pile up silently, kept noticing each other in the small, forgettable moments most exhausted parents let slide right past them. None of it is dramatic. None of it requires a grand gesture or a couple's retreat. It is built entirely out of small, repeatable choices, made on the hardest days, by two people who are just as tired as you are right now. If you want the next one, where we go deeper into the exact words that make a repair attempt land instead of falling flat, and what to actually say when you have already had the same fight 3 times this month, hit subscribe, because that part is the one almost nobody scripts out loud, the actual sentences, not just the theory behind them.